like, this is where the subscribe button is, but I don't know where it is. Find find and subscribe or follow or like or comment or whatever you feel like doing. Thank you so much for joining. I have started to broadcast about money mindsets, and our own personal finance, because I realize that a lot of us don't really talk about it and therefore don't really do what we feel like we could be doing about this area. I'm good, JD. Thank you so much for joining, everybody. So I know that Periscope is shutting down soon, and so I have moved on over to HAPPS, and that's where you can find me. You can also find me over on Instagram at RavenTao in case you want to send me any offline messages. You can also leave a lot of messages here on HAPPS or on whatever platform you are watching this on. So that should include Facebook and YouTube. And really, this is also a test for me to see how the broadcasting is multicasting and go so that I can go and have a look at what it looks like in these other platforms as well, given the landscape mode or the portrait mode. So I might be really tiny on your screen. I apologize for that if that's the case. Because I'm really not a tiny person in real life. I'm not even a petite person, really. So I'm here in Hong Kong, and I like to chat about money mindsets because I have discovered my life purpose. And I know that sounds really airy fairy, but frankly, I'm really glad because I've been searching and looking for this answer for a really long time, and it turned out to be the area that I was the most scared of. So for anybody else who's seeking their life purpose right now, it might be an area that you're super scared of and avoiding, but you know deep down that is really important for you to face at some point. So I think a lot of us have that experience in life, that there's some area that we feel like irrationally over dramatically sorry, not COVID, dramatically and like irrationally, I'm almost 5'8", irrationally like avoiding of. And for me, this area was like money. Hi, Miss TV Addict. Hi, everyone. um, I realized that I felt very insecure about money management. I started working in media full time very young. Well, not very young, just quite young, to be working full time and traveling internationally on my own, doing big campaigns. And I realized that I had no idea how to manage my money, and I knew how to work, but I didn't know how to look after myself, pretty much, and adult about money. So what I realized was that I was avoiding managing my money. And the thing with money that's really just one of those things is money is like a cat. Okay, if you don't look after it, you don't feed it, you don't treat it nice, that cat is leaving. Like, have you ever seen those Instagrams where people have like a neighbor's cat who comes and adopts them and like won't leave and asks for food all the time? That's your money. Okay, so this is what happens to our money when we don't look after it. It will leave, it will find a new home with somebody who looks after it better. Hi, Peter. So great to see you. I'm so sorry I haven't been broadcasting like at all for the past month. I've been juggling things and really just being excited about broadcasting more. So thank you so much. I sent you an email, by the way, being annoying as usual. As usual. Thanks, Peter. Great to see you too. So, in terms of this money area, I feel like a lot of us avoid it. And I am, disclaimer, not a personal finance qualified person. I'm not a finance industry professional. I am not a financial advisor. And therefore, I only talk about my own experience on this journey figuring out how to feel more empowered about money. I am not offering advice. I am simply sharing my own opinions, because really, when it boils down to it with money, we can only make our own opinions and we can only make our own decisions. So expecting someone else to look after our money better than we do, it's not going to happen. They will look after the money if they want to take the money. Okay. So when you see someone who's like, yeah, I'll look after all your money for you, run far away. Take your money and run, because really we are the ones who need to take care of our own money. Like, we need to take care of our own pets, we need to take care of our own children, we need to take care of our own body. It is part of this holistic process of taking care of ourselves that is life. And so many of us feel really let down by schools, by our parents, by life, because we haven't been taught this. And this is super legitimate and fair because we're right. You're right. It's totally true that we were not taught this, and we feel often a little bit resentful for this fact. And I feel that that is a really big weight that a lot of us carry around. Now, our parents, all right, we can forgive our parents because what we learned from them, we mostly learned by watching them. So if they didn't teach us stuff, it's because they didn't know or they weren't doing it. So to expect someone who didn't know something or wasn't doing something to be able to teach us that thing, you really, we can, most of us see the logic that that's probably not going to be realistic, right? That it's probably best for us to expect expectations from places that are meant to be teaching us. For example, school. Okay, that's pretty fair to feel let down by school because we had to learn algebra instead of budgeting, or we had to do really hard work in certain areas that have had no long-term adult financial gain or payoff in terms of the hours that we put in. The hours that we put in passing algebra, the hours that we put in passing like whatever it may have been, if it hasn't yielded fruit in our adult lives, then frankly, what were we spending all that time learning that for? So English, great. Sciences, great. Maths, in many instances, great. But a lot of us did not need to be forced to go through the levels of maths that we did because we simply weren't good at maths. And so wasting a lot of time on that area while learning nothing that was applicable to our adult life feels unfair and really just badly organized, frankly. It seems like something that was strategically very ill thought out. And so we end up feeling very resentful because we feel that school has taken our money and our time and our youth, and we have spent our money, time, and youth on school without being given or prepared with really solid life advantages that really, for the amount that most of us have paid for school in either fees or taxes or whatever, we feel like we probably were not ripped off, but we could have gotten more benefit in this particular area. We definitely could have had a class that went into money management more. We could have had like a financial advisors come in and tell us about the basics of personal finance and the basics of managing our own money. So it's really kind of an interesting topic area because so many of us have these feelings of why wasn't I taught this in school? Right? Why wasn't I taught money stuff in school? So many of us have that question. And I hear it so often in all of my conversations with many, many people from all these different walks of life, from finance industry people to less finance industry people. But hi, Fioska Chafio. Thanks for joining. Um, but a lot of people who are, teachers or not in the finance industry, and frankly, a lot of people who are in the finance industry that I do end up talking to about these personal finance areas, it doesn't necessarily equate one to the other. Just because you're good at being in finance doesn't mean you're good at personal finance. And so it's really important for us as normal finance people to be aware that people who are in finance aren't necessarily good at managing their finances. Okay, they might be great at spending lots of money and looking like they have lots of money and doing other big things with money, but in terms of stable, secure personal financial plans, some people just don't have any at all. A lot of people just say, oh, I'm just making loads of money, I'll just do something with it. But that brings us to this number one thing that will ruin people's financial lives. I've actually forgotten the title of this scope, of this broadcast, sorry. So I can't remember if it is that it's the number one thing that will ruin our financial life or something else. Yes, yeah, you assume that Miss TV Addict, that you're in higher education, so your parents were also highly educated. It's, there's a lot of like misty, cloggy, sort of confusing, when it boils down to it, whatever our expectations are of the world of our own money and our own money management, it boils down to being confusing. That's really what it is we feel like we wish we'd been taught this somewhere. We don't know why we weren't. We feel a bit resentful about it, but generally it's rooted in a feeling of being confused about why we are in this situation at all, that we don't feel confident in this area. And so what I realized in finding my purpose and blah 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 blah, um, was that I felt a lot of discomfort around this area, and I didn't know why it was so hazy and opaque and difficult to understand. So I obviously was like, yes, I will attack this, and I like really threw myself into it and harass. I on a regular daily basis, I harass multiple people about this topic. Really, I'm talking about it all the time. I'm a very, very, very boring person to hang out with. I like to talk about this topic. I like to listen to what people have to say about their own lives and experiences so I can learn and talk some more about this topic. About money and financial literacy and empowerment and like how this applies to the world as we experience it individually. So I decided that I needed to figure out the first steps to empowering myself. And the biggest number one thing in the list that I figured out of five things, my five pillars of financial stability, is money mindsets. Okay, so yeah, it took me 11 minutes to get here. I should probably do this like the reveal of the topic in the beginning of the video. But we got there in the end. Money mindsets, okay? They're the number one thing that will make the biggest difference to our finances. So here's why. Because if we have the right money mindsets, we can make any amount of money work for us and do what we want it to be doing. It's like being a really great dog trainer. Yeah. And if we don't have the right money mindsets, then our money for that dog is a nightmare. Like it just goes off, it runs, it pees everywhere, it chews on the neighbor's fence, it bites the neighbor's leg. Like it's kind of out of control because we are not in control of it. And that's simply because we don't know how to train or manage that money. So it really is in our head because money is less about numbers in personal finance and it's more about behaviors. So there are numbers in personal finance, in dealing with money. But a lot of us get hung up on the fact that we're bad at maths. And this was one of the instigating factors for me to want to launch what I'm going to be launching this year. And that's a money empowerment course. And it includes my five pillars of financial stability, which are money mindsets, savings, budgeting, investing, wills, and legacy. I created this plan for my family because I realized that a lot of the information was scattered. You can learn about investing, or you can learn about budgeting, or you can learn about savings, or you could learn a lot of different things. But under one little package, I found it hard to find like a concrete, simple plan that anybody else was really using for themselves as a template to manage their money and then also build stability or wealth moving forward. And I'm not talking like Instagram yachts and crazy billionaires kind of wealth. I'm talking about the normal wealth that most of us want and like, which is having financial stability, being able to take holidays, having a nice house without having to stress or worry about money. So the reason why a lot of us stress or worry about money is that we're not managing it properly. And that also boils down to money mindsets. Because if we're being careless about how we manage our money, it's usually because we don't have the habits in place. This is not our fault. This is not something that we should beat ourselves up about or feel terrible about or be really, like ruminating about. When we have the effects of not being able to feel in control of our money, right? If we are in, poverty cycle, that is something that we should probably go over to Dave Ramsey and look into. If we're in debt cycle or severe student loan cycle, I would recommend going and finding Dave Ramsey on YouTube and looking up his his suggestions for this area, because the area that I'm talking about is when we have some money but we know we're not managing it properly and we just could be doing better, but we're still very stressed because we feel overwhelmed about the fact that we don't know what the steps are to take from where we are right now. And so my 5 pillars of financial stability are what I created for us to use moving forward and say, here is a way to have all of the bases covered and the areas that I found seem to resonate as being the most prevalent, important parts of not losing all your money. Really, because as we mentioned before, money will just wander off. It will just go wherever it gets more attention. It's pretty needy like that, and it's very unloyal, right? Disloyal. It just is going to go where it's going to go. But frankly, if we're being treated really badly somewhere or just ignored or not not treated fairly or well, why would we stay in that situation, right? If we were to anthropomorphize money, why would money stay in that situation? It's like, dude, this is not a good relationship. This person doesn't care about me. They don't treat me well. They don't even pay me any attention. So why should I stay? And so we'll go somewhere where somebody else is saying, hey, look, I've got, you know, other monies and I look after this money and this money is working and leading a fulfilling life in property and generating, income for us through this rental or real estate or whatever it may be. And the money's like, yeah, I'll go do that. I'll go with that person. They give me something to do. It's like, it gives me purpose in my day. Yeah, I'll go and I'll be with the person who looks after money. So to be the person who has good financial stability, we simply need to have good financial habits in place. And the only way that we can start doing that is to adjust our money mindsets to say, okay, money is good to serve the purpose of the greatest good. We don't need to subscribe to money is bad. Money is bad if we fall in love with money over everything else. If we prioritize money over our community, over our health, over our family, over other people's happiness, if we prioritize money over that, then yes, it could be something that is a negative force in our life. But that could be said of anything. If we prioritize our car, our house, our job over our family connections and human interaction, then yeah, okay, it's not great as a force in our life. It's probably quite negative. Therefore, if we think of money as anything else, right, as a force to do good with, as a force to support our community, to make sure that we fill our cup first and then it overflows to be able to help other people, then we can start to recognize that that's how we use money in the right way. We make sure that we fill our cup first. And that really means, it doesn't mean that we just like give ourselves loads of money first. But what it means is that we learn the lessons and experiences that are needed to create abundance in our life. And through experiencing this process, we become more able to share and help others. If you don't know how to fish, you can't teach other people how to fish. You can guess and you'll get it wrong and make a mess. And frankly, I don't know if you'll catch any fish. But if we have gone through the experience ourselves, we can share and we can replicate and we can teach other people to fish and we can empower our village, right? Our village metaphorically, right? Because I live in one of the densest cities in Hong Kong, sorry, in the world. I live in Hong Kong. So we can empower other people as a result of us having gone through the experience of creating our own abundance or filling our cup first. And that's why there's that process. We fill our own cup first, which sounds a little bit greedy, but really it's because we have to go through that learning process first. Learn the alphabet, learn your academics before you can teach other people. That's the process. You fill your own brain or cup, and then you can share that experience outwards. So money is a result of our mind, our activities, and really our mindsets and our brains. So if we don't have the right mindsets in place, if we don't have the awareness to say, I want to create money to go through the process and then share it out, with the world, share it out with my community, then we could potentially start to feel a lot of resistance around having money. And if we do get money, we could potentially feel like we need to send it away because we don't deserve it or it's not good to have money. And this is a mindset thing. This is something that really is, if we have heard this in Sunday school or we have heard this somewhere else in the world, whether or not we are of a specific religion, it's quite useful to go over to Dave Ramsey again on YouTube. Dave Ramsey, it's just phonetic, right? Dave Ramsey, and find out his views on some of these teachings about where this mindset came from. And so when we can start to like appreciate that this mindset is slightly off center and that really we're meant to be here serving the greatest purpose and we're meant to be here doing the greatest good, then we can start to recognize that accepting our ambition and wealth and money is part of our journey to strive for fulfilling our purpose and really giving back to the community and the world. Because what the world needs is more people who have aligned with and are living in their purpose. And that's part of the reason, that's actually a major part of the reason why I decided to create this upcoming money course that I will be giving away for free for market testing in the months ahead to get all of your opinions on, because I realize that the more we're able to fulfill our purpose, the better our lives are. And if our lives are better as a whole, the whole of humanity as a collective consciousness just starts to get better. We start to make more responsible decisions about our planets, our lives, our community, integration, involvement, inclusivity. Our lives as a species become better when more of us start to evolve into our highest happiness, purpose, fulfillment, right? That energy kind of draws upwards like a helium balloon being filled. And my role in this is to channel and encourage more people in that way through this medium of money, saying, okay, I recognize that a root cause of a lot of people not fulfilling their self-actualization, not fulfilling their purpose, is because we're worried about money. We aren't managing the money we're making. We are making money. We have iPhones, we have the internet, we're doing quite well in our lives and we're comfortable. So this is going to be, hi Naples, this is going to be a course for people who are comfortable and feel like they could do more and strive more for their purpose and be more in control of their money. And as a result of being more in control of their money, they move towards their purpose and they fulfill it. And this is the end result of what I want people to be feeling. Yeah, this course that I've created, these 5 pillars of financial stability, are work that we have to do. We have to do the work to yield the results. And it's the easiest path that I could create for myself and my own family because I have dyscalculia. I'm bad at numbers. I'm not in finance. I'm not a financial industry professional. I have no financial involvement in the financial professional services industry and no qualifications in that area. Frankly, I can't because I have dyscalculia. So I can't really do numbers. It's numbers dyslexia, right? So it means that I just jumble numbers constantly and I can't read analog time very well apparently, and I'm just generally overwhelmed and terrible with all things numbers. Hi, the dog walker guy. Great to see you too. Thanks for joining. So for anyone who's just joined, you can catch me over on Instagram, Raven Tao. Thank you for following, subscribing, and liking. And I look forward to seeing you more in more money scopes and money empowerment scopes. So today's topic is the one area that will really mess up our financial lives. And that area is money mindsets. If we don't think money's good, we will avoid money. If we think that rich people are bad, we will avoid becoming rich. If we think that money's difficult, it will be difficult. So I've created this 5 pillars of financial stability plan and program that I use for my own family. And it's really the simplest that I could create in order to be able to have dyscalculia, like numbers dyslexia, and be able to have a plan for my money that was the laziest and easiest to do while being the most interchangeable. So there's 5 pillars of financial stability. Start with money mindsets. And this is because I really feel like it's one of the most important areas. If you don't get this area right, then everything else can be lost. Really. Apart from the wills and legacy part, it's really, really destabilizing. So, money mindsets, savings, budgeting, investing, wills and legacy. I feel that if these 5 areas are covered, then our financial lives have a lot more chance of being stable. And for us to be able to not only have financial stability, but also start to move towards the path of building wealth. And that's quite nice. Like normal expected wealth. Like not giant yachts and billionaire. I sleep 4 hours a night and I work 24 hours a day and I run like a massive conglomerate company. People who are going to do that are going to just go ahead and do that, right? So this is for the rest of us who really just want to live our nice lives, have our nice families, and be comfortable with the choices that we're making in our everyday existence, including that with money. We want money to be less difficult, annoying, hard. So for example, one of the areas that I developed doing regularly was daily budgeting. I just put in the daily receipts and everything into my budgeting app. I've simplified it so that it is the easiest possible. Now, when I had to do it once a week, I found I just started to avoid it. And I really wasn't having as much luck doing this on a weekly basis. I felt overwhelmed, it felt uncomfortable, but if I have to do it every day, it's a tiny, tiny amount of discomfort. But that tiny, tiny amount of like, I have to do this, it just becomes a habit much more easily rather than leaving it all to the end of the week and then doing it, because then we have this feeling of, And if we have a feeling of, we're going to avoid doing the thing. So what we want to do with our financial and money life and personal finance is we want to make it as easy as possible for ourselves to succeed in this area, because we know that this area, as scary as it may be for a lot of us, is actually very possible to become empowered in and really start to get very good at the simple basics of. And who knows, once we become better at the simple basics of this area, we can grow in confidence and start to take steps into increasing our awareness in other areas of our personal finance, such as investing or such as, whatever it may be for us. We may be even better at savings once we start to budget and realize that we're wasting a load of money in an area. We may realize that actually we don't want our savings to be eroded by sitting there in cash. We'd rather take on some risk and in investments because of the fact that previously we were too scared to lose any of our money, but we realized that we're already losing money by deflation, right? By inflation, and because our money losing value because of inflation, just sitting there in the bank doing nothing. And so as we gain in confidence, we start to be able to make better decisions for ourselves because we're learning more about what we're like and what we are comfortable doing or accepting or living with our money. And so when we realize that our money life is entirely in our hands, we have absolutely every chance of developing our confidence, starting to make slightly different decisions, and as a result, we start teaching ourselves what we wish we had been taught in school about money. Now, what I have created that's going to be released later this year is the simplest possible path that I could have taken with my family for this personal finance strategy. And I created it for our use because I wanted something that made me feel stability, security, but also allowed me to take risks and invest. Now, this plan of the 5 pillars of financial stability of money mindsets, savings, budgeting, investing, wills, and legacy really center around the topic of today's broadcast, which is that the number one area that will derail our finances is money mindsets. When we think that we only need to do savings but not budgeting, when we think that we only need to do savings but not investing, when we think that we don't need a will because it's scary, and for some reason not doing a will is going to keep us alive forever, like that's worked for anybody ever in history. Really, we'll go into these areas a little bit further as time goes on, but if our mindsets are not in place, we will become one of those people that I have seen over and over and over and over and over again, who maybe they struggle and they somehow keep losing their money. Or maybe they make a lot of money and then somehow manage to end up with none. They're older, they end up getting divorced, they've never managed their finances. We've seen this happen to people in our lives, most of us, where there have been financial situations that have gone wrong. People have invested in the stock market and lost everything. And there's all these dramatic lost tales that are out there, but usually it's because people didn't look after their money in a stable way. So if you have your dog and you take your dog to the park and you decide, I've had this dog one day. I don't need a leash for the dog. I don't think I remembered to bring the leash. I'm just going to let my dog run because dogs like to run. Your dog is off. It's gone. It doesn't know who you are. It doesn't care. He's seen another dog. He's seen a deer. Anyone seen that video of the guy running off to the deer? Ah! It's amazing. But that dog will just go. So if you don't know how to manage your money, if you just put your dog or your money into an investment in a high risk situation that you have no idea about, it's gone. It's just going to be gone. You may get lucky and your dog may come back. It may be like, oh, that guy feeds me for like 24 hours. Maybe it's nice. Maybe your dog is scared and won't run off. But there is a very, very high risk chance that your dog is just going to be out of there. And really, you're never going to see it again because it wasn't really your dog. You didn't treat it like your dog. You didn't look after your dog. Your money, if you don't look after it, make sure you try and do things that keep it safe. Your money's just going to leave. Like if you have a dog and you just don't do things to keep it safe. Keep it on a leash. Make sure it knows its name. Make sure it runs back when we call it. Like there are very basic things that all of us do when we get a dog that we don't even really think about. We give it a name. We make ourselves familiar with it. We make sure that it knows how to come to us. That's one of the first things we teach our dog is how to come back to us. And that is a safety mechanism of us saying, okay, if my dog doesn't know how to come back to me, then he's just going to leave. He's just going to go because he doesn't know his own name. And he doesn't know by having his own name that we have a tie and a relationship where I'm going to keep him safe. So if we have money that we put into a high risk situation and we haven't got any relationship with it, we don't look after it at all, we don't have any kind of fail safes in place, there's a very high chance that money's just going to be out of there, right? It's going to go after a bird or after a deer or whatever it may be. But these types of bizarre examples serve really just to show that how we think of, treat, and behave towards our money reflect exactly the amount of money that we end up having and keeping. If we treat our money like crap in a relationship, our money's going to go. It's going to say, you know what? I just don't want to live with you anymore. You don't look after me. You don't pay me attention. And frankly, you don't give me anything to do. So I'm sitting here in a savings account, depreciating, becoming less and less every single year. And I'm going off slightly, like my loyalty is just going away to somewhere else, right? In this particular case, just to depreciation, to the bank, whatever, wherever it's going, just like through thin air. Its mood is getting lower and lower. So what we have to do and what we have to recognize is as we change ourselves, the world looks completely different. You've all experienced this. We've all experienced this. Every single one of us experiences this when we put on sunglasses. Okay? It's the most basic and ridiculous possibly example I can think of. You put on green sunglasses, the world itself looks green. We know it hasn't changed to green, but our eyes perceive the world as green. So if we, hi Beverly, so if we didn't know that this is what was happening, our conscious brain had no idea that this is what was happening. You wake up and suddenly everything is green, then you think that the world looks like this. You think that these things that were white are now green, right? Like the sky is not blue, the sky is turquoise. And other things, like, I mean, the ocean looks amazing, right? It's like a really deep teal because everything is green. You put on different colored sunglasses, and your eyes and your mind will change accordingly. The world will be pink, or the world will be darker, or the world will be less bright, or red, or whatever it may be. So this is just a very simple example of how, as we change our perception, how we see or think of something, our experience, as we experience the world, will change. And as we develop our money mindsets, the number one area that will throw us off in the rest of our money life, as we develop our money mindsets, we start to see different things in the world that we didn't necessarily see before. So when we first started budgeting, we first started changing our money mindsets, right? We said, okay, we're just going to do this for a few weeks. And we did. And oh, it was a pain in the ass. I'm sorry, it was a pain in the butt. Okay, I gotta learn how to swear less. But it was a pain or a bother for us to do. Oh, more appropriate, Raven. It was a bother for us to do in the beginning because it was just something new that we had to add on to our already busy days. But I got a budgeting app and I started to just log receipts. So really it was just tracking spending. And at some point I had, at some different points in this journey, I had actually like a diary planner. I no longer have the diary planner thing because I like smaller bags now. But I had like a Filofax thing that I started using, and in there I just simply wrote down what I was spending and then put a little line under it and tallied for the day. And then next day I would do that. And on the side part, I would just tally from the previous day and the next day and the next day. And so therefore I would start to see just what I was spending in the day and just the total amount, just a tally. And in doing that, I started to get a lot more awareness of just what was going out and the amounts that it was adding up to. And the amounts that it was adding up to made me start to realize, oh wow, this is actually like I'm spending a lot more in overall than I realized that I was spending in terms of a large amount. Like if we see, like $20 here, $20 there, it's very different to seeing the number like $500. We feel quite different about seeing that numbers in terms of outgoing because we suddenly feel like, oh my gosh, that is something we don't have anymore. That is $500 we don't have. And when we suddenly have that awareness, we become a little bit more loss averse. We think, wait, am I spending in areas that I don't want to be spending? And this natural next step of our own logical deduction means that we start to say, oh, I do not need to be having like that much money on coffee. So what I did after doing this Filofax thing was I said, okay, I'm going to use a budgeting app. And so I had used it in the past and just kind of used it very roughly, but not really capitalized on all of its advantages. So I said, okay, now that I'm tracking just what is outgoing for a month, between a month to 3 months, right? Even in the first week, I started noticing a difference in the way that I saw how I was spending. So I, after writing it down on my little notepad, said, okay, I'm going to use a budgeting app. Now, the budgeting app that I use, not sponsored at all. I mean, it'd be awesome if I was sponsored by this app because I love it. But I really like the app called iExpensit. So it's .IXPENSEIT. And that app you can get in light version or pro version. And I ended up starting with the light version. And what I did was then I started putting it in, and it shows a little pie chart of the areas, the categories in which I was spending. Because previously in just my day's spending, I wasn't looking at the categories. I was really just looking at the overall number at the end. And so now I started to see with this app, iExpensit, that I was using on my phone, the categories. And I had some like massive categories in like coffee and transport. So I realized, wow, I'm really spending a lot of money on transport, which actually I'm comfortable with. I'm comfortable with being a selective spender in that area. It's still one of the highest areas that I will spend money in, apart from shopping, because that's just a thing that I like to do as a spender, okay? I like to buy lovely things. I like to buy gorgeous little things like this beautiful ring from ObjektStore that I'm currently obsessed with because it does these really cute little like cubic zirconia crushed ice cuts. And I like to buy other stuff like billions of white turtlenecks. I like to wear a lot of jewelry. It's just one of those things. And so and decorate my home as well. Obviously, you can tell, right, with my background. Um, but what I realized is that as I started to notice first my outgoings by tracking my spending, then the categories, I started to naturally become more selective of the areas that I was spending quite a lot, but that weren't really important to me. So I realized I'd rather be spending more money on like jewelry than I would be on coffee. Like, I really don't care about coffee. I'm sorry, all the coffee drinkers out there, but I don't seem to have as much of a coffee love as I would frankly like to, because the smell of coffee is amazing, okay? But I don't seem to need that pep in the morning. I maybe have a green shake that is called Energizer Shake, and it maybe does the same thing. I have no idea. I'm also a slightly hyper person, so maybe that's why I don't eat coffee. You can imagine me on coffee, right? It'd just be the worst. So anyways, the point is that I started to realize in doing budgeting that certain areas I just naturally didn't want to spend in. So when we start to take the steps of our journey and we start to move towards doing different actions that are small but helpful in our financial life, then we start to really slowly not only grow in awareness of how we're spending and the choices we're making, but our confidence. And this is an area that I really didn't estimate was going to grow so much from budgeting. But anyone who has low financial confidence, this is an area that will benefit your confidence in your financial life possibly the most of anything, actually. So some of us would, yeah, become more confident with investing, but investing is so high risk. There's no real control over it. We can just decide in different areas and gain or lose in an investing area. But with budgeting, it really is in our control. It really is our money. It really does become very clear that we are really driving this, that we are driving our financial life. And what a lot of people find when they start to budget is that they start to naturally, selectively spend less in certain areas than others. They might find they're spending thousands of dollars on dining out or delivery. Whereas really, they could just make that at home. They could just like buy a pizza and make it at home and have a family experience rather than delivery pizza. And that money might add up with the money and then with the tips and every day or, quite a few days of the week or whatever it may be. So we start to notice where our priorities lie with our money. And that is really empowering because when we're first starting out and we look at money, we feel overwhelmed and scared about avoiding it. We really aren't getting to know it at all. We're not getting to know our dogs. We're not getting to know our cats. We're not getting to know its personality, its foibles, the things that we will actually learn to love about it. So we may have a cat that is really grumpy if we touch its stomach and like attacks us whenever we touch its stomach. But some reason it lays on its back and exposes its stomach a lot. And first we'll find that a bit annoying that it keeps biting us, right? The biting itself will be annoying. But after living with this cat for a while, all of us, I guarantee you, all of us will start to see that cat and try and tickle its stomach. You see it on Instagram, like across the world, right? It's just one of those things. We just like to annoy our pets and we like to be engaged with our animals. And I mean, I'm not talking in a bad way, but maybe like go towards doing it to like tease the cat. And the cat loves you. The cat keeps coming back. It knows you're going to annoy it and tickle its belly, but that's part of the relationship. This is an annoying human who feeds me, and I come back to this house and he keeps trying to tickle my belly, even though I don't want my belly tickled. And it's just a dynamic that we develop as a relationship. And it turns into love because we both mutually have the same values and respect for each other, that we want to be together, we want to live together. And yeah, so we're going to play around, have fun, annoy each other, and fall in love with each other as a result of that. And we may not necessarily fall in love with money, but we will definitely start to enjoy some aspects of it as a result of taking the steps to get to know it. And really getting to know our money, here's the thing, getting to know our money is just getting to know ourselves. Getting to know our money is just getting to know ourselves. So this is really important because in getting to know ourselves, we accept what we find important, what we prioritize, and what we don't. Also, areas that we might have been thrown off, right, by external forces, by other things in our life that we have been pressured into subconsciously or psychologically. And when we start to budget, we can start to say, actually, I don't want to be spending that much in this area, in online shopping or whatever. And so, Paul, this is exactly, nail driver, what I was saying in the beginning of this broadcast, that a lot of us resent that we haven't been taught money management skills in school. And this course that I'm creating is really just about this area so that we can learn the things for ourselves that we wanted to be taught in school, that really can just give us the confidence to take the next steps forward. The plan that I've created, the 5 pillars of financial stability, are my own strategy for my own life. But in sharing that, I hope that other people might be able to develop their own plan, their own confidence, and find their own way for their own money life. Because in getting to know our money life and getting to know ourselves, we start to take the steps towards becoming more empowered to live our purpose and live our highest life. Thank you everyone for joining today. I've got to scoot off to an appointment, but it's been really, really fun to see you all. Please like, share, follow, subscribe, all of the above. You can catch me over on Instagram at Raven Tao if you would like to chat offline there, or I'm happy to read all your comments. And thank you so much for everybody who's seen this on a tiny screen because of the adjustments, since I'm broadcasting from a really fun app called HAPPS. I will look into that and look forward to seeing you more again in future. So keep in mind, money mindsets are the #1 area that will mess up our financial life if we don't have it under control or have our own choices placed in. Thank you so much, Paul. That's really sweet. I'm really looking forward to using these points that I'm getting on HAPS to be able to give it out to more broadcasters. So I'm very, very excited for that actually. So that will be really, really fun. Thank you so much for my Stay Safe award. I appreciate all of you, and I hope that this was helpful for someone out there. I look forward to being more in touch with you. And if you feel any resonance with any of these things that I'm saying, please subscribe, get involved, start joining for more of these broadcasts to share your experience and your opinions on money in our lives. I'll see you again soon. Bye, everyone.